Hey there! It's so hard to believe that this is our last video in our Google Apps and Add-on series. Today, as you can see, we're going to be talking about Google Classroom, which can be found in the waffle icon on any Google screen or at classroom.google.com. For those of you who are not familiar with Google Classroom, I wanted to start off with a little overview of the system. For those of you who are familiar and are a regular Classroom user, feel free to use the links above me in this video to skip ahead to some of the parts that may be a little more useful for you. So here's our overview. So this is what an example Google Classroom would look like. The page that you land on first in a Google Classroom is called the Stream. The Stream holds absolutely everything that has ever been posted or shared in a Google Classroom. So as you can imagine, this page gets pretty long near the end of the school year. On this page, you can see that there are posts and assignments and announcements that have been shared from me in this Google Classroom example. You can also see on the left side of the screen that a calendar will appear for students if they have any due dates coming up for upcoming work, so they can see right away when things are due in their Google Classroom. You can, of course, customize the look of this Google Classroom page by selecting a theme or uploading a photo of your choice, and you can also change the name and the classroom code of your Google Classroom by going to the settings gear at the top. So once you're in settings, you can edit the classroom details, you can get a new code, you can set the permissions for your classroom. So right now, this classroom is set to where students can post or comment. You can change that at any time to where students can only comment, or if your students are not handling that responsibly, you can turn it off to where only teachers can create posts or comments in the classroom. You can go through and select some other items as well, especially for grading calculations. Google Classroom has its own sort of gradebook built into it now, so you can set those permissions here as well. So that's kind of an overview of this Stream page. It's kind of like the home page for your Google Classroom. The second tab is the Classwork tab. This is one that I really highlight for students as one of the most important parts of their Google Classroom, because this pulls out only the items that are assigned to them that they have to do and get done. So this is going to be your main creation page for your Google Classroom. So you'll see here under the Create option, you have all sorts of things that you can create for your students to do, including regular assignments, quizzes, materials. You can ask them questions, and then you can also separate those out into topics. So you can see on mine, this top piece, these assignments here are not divided into topics, but when you look near the bottom, I have a math topic and a social studies topic created so that those assignments are just kind of broken down and a little more visually accessible to students. Google Classroom also initiated a drag and drop feature, which is really helpful. So you can just hold an assignment and drag and drop it into any of your topics, or to reorder it in the list, which is really helpful. You can also drag and drop entire topics around to reorder those as well. You can see here that you can also have access to your classroom's Google Calendar. So again, that will just display due dates for any assignments that you have. And you can also access the Classroom Drive folder, which is where student work will be submitted once it's submitted in Google Classroom. So you will have a classroom folder in your Google Drive from now on. One thing that's different about Google Classroom in this new update is we look at the Create button, and we can create all of those things, but you can also create something in Google Classroom called an announcement. The announcements are actually on the Stream page. It's right here where it says share something with class. So you could type in an announcement is what it sounds like. Anything that you want to remind students of, or if you want to post a quick link in there and have them just click on the link and go to it, those are good things for announcements. They're just things that you would kind of stand up and say in class, like you would make a general announcement. You can also see anytime you see these arrows here, you can reuse a post. So if you have multiple Google Classrooms or a classroom from a year ago, or you have an assignment that you kind of want to recreate, you can reuse post. It will ask you which classroom you want to pull the initial post from, and then you can edit it from there and reassign it to this current classroom that you're in. That works for announcements, and it also works in assignments as well. So those are your Stream and Classwork pages. The next one is your People page. So here you can see any teachers and students assigned to the classroom. This will work a little bit differently with our Bullitt County classrooms because most of the classrooms that you all have are ones that are created from the district through Infinite Campus. So you all will not really be able to customize that except unless we go in like on the back side of things and we can add co-teachers and things to those classrooms. But if you set up a new Google Classroom, which you absolutely can, then you are able to add students and co-teachers to any time using these options on your people page. You just click the plus sign to either invite students or to invite teachers to the classroom. You can also invite their guardians to the classroom so they can sign up and actually receive a guardian summary of the things that are posted in your Google Classroom, work that their student may be behind on, and things like that. And then you can also email all guardians right here at the top. You can also do different things in the students page by using these checkbox options here. So if I want to checkbox a student, then I can go to actions. I can do any of these three things. I can email the student, I can completely remove them from the class, or I can mute them. So this is a good option. Earlier we talked about going into the settings and disabling the students can post and comment option if your class isn't able to handle that maturely at this point. But if your entire class is doing a pretty good job and you just got 1 or 2 students, you can come into your people page, checkbox them, and mute those students so that only those students will not be allowed to post or comment in Google Classroom. Now they'll still be able to do all of their work as normal. They just won't be able to initiate any sort of conversation either with you or with their peers in Google Classroom. So that's the mute function there. So that's your people page. On the grades page, it kind of is laid out like a grade book. So you can see really quickly averages and scores on individual assignments, whether students have turned those in or have not turned those in, and all of that sort of thing. So from your classwork page, you can actually create assignments for students to do and submit back to you. One of the best parts about creating an assignment in Google Classroom is that you can add templates and things that you already have started in your Google Drive and share those with students so that each student gets a copy. So for example, I could add something from my Google Drive to this assignment. And let's say I have a template that I want students to edit. Maybe I want them to be able to edit this Google Slides template. So all I have to do is select it and click Add. Naturally, it pops up so that students can only view the file, but you also have the option to make a copy for every student in your classroom. So they each get the template and then they're able to edit their own copy of that and resubmit it to you. So that's one of the best features about creating an assignment in Google Classroom is that you can actually go in and automatically set it so that each student gets their own copy of the assignment. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that grading feature. So we just saw the grade book, but what does that look like? How do we get to that point? So if you have some assignments that are done and you have some students that have already turned those in, you can actually go in and grade those assignments at any time. So click View Assignment, and then you can see we've got one student that's turned it in and one student that's still working on it. It's still just assigned to them. So this student is finished, so I can click on his work and it will open up full page for me. I can go in and set a numerical grade for his work here. You saw in the assignment tab where you can set the total points of the assignment. So this one we're just saying is a 100-point assignment. So maybe he got a 90 on that. And then I can also add a private comment back to the student like great work, or make sure you take a look at number 4, or whatever I want to say to them, and then I can send that back to them. Students will not be able to edit any of their work after they submit it unless you hit the blue return button and return their work back to them. So if you go in and make comments about things that you specifically want them to go back and change on their work, do make sure to hit that return button so that they get those editing rights back and they can go in and actually make the changes that you've suggested to them on their work. So that's kind of how to enter those grades into your Google Classroom gradebook. Another question that I get asked a lot about Google Classroom is the notification piece of Google Classroom. So you can use this menu over here in the corner. Some people call it the hamburger menu or the hot dog menu, either one. Once I click on that, if I keep scrolling down, I'll see the settings that I have created for my Google Classrooms. So here is where you can manage your notifications. So you can decide whether you want to receive notifications or not by toggling this on or off. If you do toggle it on to receive email notifications, you can go through and customize exactly which notifications you want to receive via email. So some of these may be important to you and some of them might not. So it's great that Google lets you customize each individual part of that. You can also decide for which classes you want to receive notifications. So you can toggle on or off any of your classrooms here as well. So you heard a little earlier about the Guardian summaries that are available through Google. So if on your People page you do invite Guardians, they have the option to sign up for those or not. But remember, those are just kind of generic things that are coming up, maybe some work that your student is late on, but really that's about it. So I do have some instructions that I wanted to share on how you can send specific updates to parents about the work that their child is doing in your Google Classroom. So I'm not going to read these instructions to you, but I am going to post these as a link above me right here in my Google site for this specific PL series so that you can go through and it walks you through step by step of exactly where to go and what to click in order to share a kind of specific overview of a student's work in Google Classroom with their individual parents. So be looking for that link above in these video descriptions. Another great, mildly new feature to Google Classroom is the ability to grade with rubrics and to turn on originality reports for student work. So if I were going to create a new assignment for my students, I can give this just a sample assignment. Let's say that I wanted them to, again, use the template from my Google Drive, so maybe those same slides that we were talking about earlier. Give each student their own copy. Then I have the option here to add a rubric to this assignment. So I can create a rubric from scratch right here in Google Classroom. I can reuse a rubric if I've already got one created, or if you love Google Sheets like I do, maybe you create your rubric in Sheets and then you can actually import that rubric into this assignment. So that will really help with your scoring. And then you also have a checkbox here to turn on originality reports for your different assignments in Google Classroom so that Google can also kind of get your back and kind of make sure that students are doing their own original work without plagiarizing or copying from others. So those are two new great features of Google Classroom on the assignments page, is to score with a rubric and then to run those originality reports. So Google Classroom is a little bit of a different Google tool. As you can see, it's more of like a basic learning management system instead of like a specific tool for the average everyday individual to use. So because of that, it doesn't have add-ons that you can add, but there are several extensions available in the Chrome Web Store that make Google Classroom even more awesome. So if you're in the Chrome Web Store, one of the extensions is called Share to Classroom. And so this extension, remember all extensions live up here in your extension bar in Google Chrome. This extension allows you that no matter what website you're on, you can click on the extension icon and immediately create either an announcement or an assignment directly in Google Classroom based on the website that you're on. So that one is really, really neat. Another great extension for Google Classroom is Classroom Split. So this one, it kind of helps organize either your screen or your student's screen so that you can see when it's enabled, you've got your work on one side of the screen and then your actual Google Classroom page in another side of your screen. So this is great because, and those of you who are actually avid users of Google Classroom know that if you're asking students to create something or to edit a template, when they click on that, their Google Classroom stays in another tab, but the document that they open is kind of blank, like it doesn't have any instructions on it. It's just the template or a blank document, whatever you're asking them to do. So by enabling Classroom Split, then they're able to keep their Google Classroom open on the same page as what they're working on. So they can just immediately see whatever instructions you've asked them to do while they're simultaneously working on their document or their template or whatever you're asking them to do. So Classroom Split is really great for that. The last extension that I want to mention is Random Student. So this one is a great extension because it takes your classroom roster from Google Classroom, and when you click on the icon, you just select which classroom you want to choose from, and then it selects a random student from the group. So you can see here an example. It just pops up their name and their little image icon for their profile in Google on the screen. So it's great for asking questions, great for taking turns, great for choosing team leaders. All sorts of things in the classroom can be done using that random student generator extension for Google Classroom. The last thing that I wanted to mention in this video was a link to my website, and I'll send you directly to the Google Classroom page, and it has all sorts of great resources for you. So it has that document that I was mentioning earlier, which is also linked above, where you can share specifics about student work with their individual guardians. It also has a slideshow of Google Classroom basics. So it goes more in depth on creating assignments, creating announcements, the different pieces of Google Classroom. So you can find that there as well. But then if you scroll down just a little bit, I've got an updated Google Classroom slideshow there as well, and this one goes into a lot of detail with some really creative ideas that you can use for Google Classroom, things that maybe you haven't thought of, different assignments that you can create that sort of incorporate student discourse and collaboration and things like that. It also shows you a sort of naming convention for your different classroom assignments and topics that sort of help make it easier for both you and students to stay organized. So do feel free to check that out. I'll post the link above in this video, and I hope you have a great time exploring in Google Classroom. And make sure you also check the bottom of the links above my head, because it's going to talk about how you can submit for your PL credit for this series. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.